Good afternoon, everybody. It's David Schlotthauer here in the home weather office for Friday, January the 5th, 2024. In today's detailed weather forecast, we have several big storm systems that could dump inches of snowfall with possibly up to a foot. Blizzard conditions, big time severe weather event for the deep south, along to go with flood concerns. And then we will be talking about the big Arctic air mass that is still possible. So the first thing that we are going to be talking about is the big nor'easter that is anticipated for the Northeast in the next 24 to 36 hours, which will be dumping quite a bit of snowfall. We're talking about serious ice, some strong winds. So here's a look at the European model for this afternoon, and we can see where that system is actually located, bringing quite a bit of rainfall over Louisiana, some severe weather. You can see on the bottom right side of the screen where we have that line of storms. We got a little bit of snow that is falling across portions of Missouri, but nothing too significant, right? Until we get into tomorrow afternoon. So let's fast forward this into Saturday morning, January the 6th, 2024, showing you where that system is going to be, moving pretty quickly over Florida, over the Carolinas. This is nothing compared to the second system that we'll be talking about here in just a little bit. But yes, lots of ice in these areas because, again, we have warmer air advecting over colder air. So the snow starts off, melts to rain, and then refreezes once it encounters below freezing temperatures, below 32 that is. And so you get ice on the roadways, on structures, on trees, power lines, and that usually leads to hazardous to impossible road travel and air travel with power outages. But that's not all. We're also going to be seeing snow pick up in a hurry as some colder air gets going out of the north with this. You can see that flow coming in there. Going forward into Saturday night and into Sunday is when it really gets serious. Look at all this blue on your screen, an indication that there is going to be quite a bit of intense snowfall in these areas. Now, confidence is still a little uncertain exactly where the snow line and rain line will be over New York City, Queens, as well as Bronx if you're in the Long Island area, City Island, northern central New Jersey. There is a little bit of deformation to the system, a little bit of uncertainty on exactly the track, and therefore we are actually going to be zooming in on this in just a second. But look at, lots of snowfall is anticipated. Looking at the GFS model, the American model, playing this through nearly the same time that the Euro does, you can see quite a bit of ice, big time accumulations, potentially a quarter of an inch to maybe a half an inch, enough to knock out trees or bring down some trees, weakened trees that is, enough to knock out the power because we will have fallen power lines at this point. We're going to see a lot of ice on roadways. So if you're doing anything this weekend, please do not do so on Saturday, as there will be a lot of freezing rain in these sheltered valleys. Remember, cold air is denser than warmer air, and so it's going to want to kind of hug the ground. It doesn't want to move around and mix out very well. And so when you get snow, melts to rain, then freezes, you get freezing rain. And that's what we see here over Virginia, West Virginia, including for northwestern North Carolina. There's going to be a lot of headlines on this one, as there's a lot of hazards to go. So big time snow on the GFS, nearly the same time that the Euro shows it. So timing is there. Looks like Saturday night into Sunday morning, we'll see the heaviest snow moving across the Northeast. So now let's talk about the benchmark, okay? The sweet spot for everything, right? Because we know that if this goes a little further north, goes a little further south, it could mean the difference, right? So right now, the Euro, let's just kind of uniquely circle this in right here. So the Euro has the surface low right there. Okay, the lowest pressure we could find is right there. Your snow line is right here along the I-95 corridor into New Jersey, as well as the downtown New York area. So let's take a look now at the GFS model. Oh, it's a little further south into and covers much of Long Island, right? So like the Bronx, and the surface low is a little bit to the south, just a little bit to the south. Again, here's the Euro, a little bit to the northeast. We'll look at a little slower into the south. I know it might seem like, oh, it's a little difference, David. Little differences in the track make a huge difference in who gets the snow and who doesn't. Right, so we can see in northern New Jersey, big time snow there. Might see 6 to 12 inches of snow, right? On the European model, maybe a little lesser because the surface low is a little further north, if that makes sense. Not by a lot, maybe a few miles, but a few miles makes a difference, right? So that's what the GFS shows as far as the snowfall goes. But let's take a look at our high-res models. This is the HRRR, or the High Resolution Rapid Refresh. Take note, the greens and oranges are heavy rainfall, the purples are freezing rain, the apricot, orangish, well, whatever color that you can call it, kind of that pigment color is sleet, and then of course your blue is snow. So let's go forward in time and see how this all evolves. We can see the snow rapidly intensifying over southeastern Ohio, Pennsylvania. This is for about 1 or 2 in the afternoon, Eastern Standard Time. You can see quite a bit of rainfall. Not as much freezing rain. While early on there's more freezing rain, then that warmer air is able to mix out a little bit more due to strong winds and the pressure gradient that favors that. And then by Saturday afternoon, this is when it really could be intense. Look at all these oranges and red colors. That indicate some fairly intense rainfall and some big time impacts with heavy snowfall for northern New Jersey. And then you can see where the snow is falling. So on this particular model, it's snowing pretty hard. Actually, we could see some brief blizzard conditions over New York City as well as Long Island. So something that you don't normally see with this system, and then it would transition quickly over to rain before the system is over with. Now looking at the NAM, or the NAM 3-kilometer model, we can see more freezing rain, the snow quite similar to the HRRR, covering all of Pennsylvania by Saturday afternoon, and then moving across the New York City area. The I-95 corridor could be very Tetris up here because of how heavy the snow is, and all that blue really indicates just how heavy it will be coming down. To the south is where we have the heaviest rainfall with embedded thunderstorms that could be strong, capable of producing intense rainfall and strong winds as those develop and move over New Jersey. And then by the time we go into Sunday morning, still snowing pretty good here over much of New York, but like downtown area might be in the crosshairs, maybe trending back over to snow by Sunday late morning, early afternoon, once the cooler air moves back into the forecast in the wake of that low pressure center. Now, there are still comments in my comments section below yesterday's video on exactly how much snowfall you're going to see. We have a better idea today than what we had in yesterday's video because we have a little bit more run-to-run consistency along our high-res models. So the NAM 3-kilometer model thinks that downtown New York as well as Long Island, central northern New Jersey could get as much as, say, 3 to 6 inches of snowfall. Whereas if you're just north of the downtown area, like much up here of, say, Pennsylvania, as well as, say, central New York, Vermont, New Hampshire, Maine, as well as Massachusetts, even Connecticut, could see more than a foot of snowfall. Some of the higher peaks where it's cooler, where we get more orographic forcing, you could see as much as 1.5 feet of snow. So still thinking maybe 16 to 18 inches in some of the most favorable areas for the heaviest snow, but in general, we're looking at anywhere between about 6 to 12 inches of snowfall for much of the population here. And this is going to impact quite a bit of people, folks, not just the heavy snow, but the heavy rain and some gusty winds will likely impact over 50 to 60 million people. So be sure you do share this with your family and friends because this is a highly impactful event. And looking at the HRRR model, also kind of similar with these snowfall totals, probably a little bit lesser or maybe a little bit more over downtown New York, and Long Island might get 2 to 4 inches of snowfall, which is better than nothing. But again, this is a forecast and not an actual what will exactly happen. It's a slight different in temperature. If it's 1.5 degrees warmer or if it's 0.5 degree warmer, it's going to make the difference on 2 inches or not. So there's no exact forecast here. And even so, I am predicting 2 to 4 inches of snow for downtown New York, as well as Long Island and northern New Jersey, does not mean you will see that much. Plus or minus 2 or 3 inches is certainly on the forecast of uncertainties at this point. Better confidence does exist up here, like I said, into central New York, Vermont, New Hampshire, where I think you will get at least a foot of snowfall over a 24 to 36 hour period. As you get the colder temperatures, more colder air advection in the wake of that, on the northern side, you're likely to see snow throughout the entire system, versus further south here, you might start off as snow, transition over to rain, back to snow afterwards. Okay, and where that transition happens, when it happens, will make a big deal on how much exact snowfall you get. Over the higher elevations here of the Appalachians in the West Virginia, and Pennsylvania, the Poconos might see as much as about a foot or less of snowfall. Where it doesn't snow, you will get rain, and a lot of it in portions of central Virginia, as well as Maryland, Delaware, as well as southern New Jersey, might get at least an inch of rainfall out of this storm system. Now, when we take a look at how strong the winds are going to be, yeah, winds are going to be a problem with this one. Hence the winter storm warnings and stuff. I would not be surprised if they go for high wind warnings or wind advisories with this, because the winds are going to be awfully strong as this surface low moves on through. So going into Saturday morning, wind gusts between 15 to 30 miles an hour. Winds will be on the increase as we go into Saturday evening into Saturday night. Look at these wind gusts in the favored areas between 40 to 60 miles an hour perhaps. Look at over Long Island and City Island. Could see wind gusts greater than 55 miles an hour. By early Sunday morning, winds could gust between 40 to 60 miles an hour in the favored areas, like I said, and then those winds will be on the decrease. So now that we talked about storm number 1, let's talk about storm number 2, and now storm number 3 that is now in the mix on the parade of snowstorms that the Midwest will be dealing with. So here's a look at the GFS model. Then we're going to be looking at the Euro after that. This is for Monday morning, so in the next 3 days, for January the 8th, there is our second system setting up shop over Texas, the High Plains. This includes for New Mexico and the Rockies, but doesn't look like a whole big storm yet, right? Because cyclogenus has not began yet at this point. It's not until we get later on in the forecast, so say by early Tuesday morning, when we get better dynamics. Look at this rain here. This is pretty intense for the deep south and for the southeast. Snow coming down on the northern side of this. Now, there have been some questions. Who is going to get the snow? Well, when we look at our previous model runs, we can see that I think the benchmark for the heaviest snowfall will be up in this areas where I think we're going to see the most accumulation. Okay, so now going forward, and you'll see the snowfall amount here in just a second, but look at this. For Tuesday, January the 9th, wow, this gets even more dynamic. Heavier rainfall, some severe weather, possibly a severe weather event, or even an outbreak of tornadoes, potentially, some of which could be strong. Wait until I show you the wind dynamics here in just a little bit. And then going forward, look at how intense that rainfall is going to be over the southeast, the eastern seaboard, even off the charts here. Rainfall rates could exceed over 1.5 inches an hour in portions of the Carolinas. And then eventually, that heavy rainfall will spread into the northeast, with the snow, the heaviest, going to be favored along that northern quadrant of the system. So it means that Detroit could start off seeing some pretty good snow, then melting to rain. So you're going to have rapid snow melt, and that is not a good situation you want to be in. We might even see some ice, because when you actually add rain on top of snow, that snow gets more crunchy, and we could see some black ice and some slick conditions on roadways. Then that moves out of the picture for Wednesday. So this is in about 5 days, moves into the northeast. But look what we got going on over here. Another winter storm in the making on the GFS. And that one could even be more highly impactful. Let's kind of fast forward this, right? So this is for Thursday, January the 11th, January the 12th. Look at this. This thing could be a big one. A bigger one than the second one that you're about to witness. Look at how heavy the snowfall could be over northern Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, Missouri. Look at the ice that you see on your screen. This is not a good situation at all. We could see a lot of problems if this pans out, and there is more impetus than not that system will exist in the models, because if we look at previous runs, maybe a little slower, a little later to get the system going, but look at it's there in the last 4 GFS models with that system trending further south and more intense snowfall because of better dynamics. You can see, boy, if this moves over St. Louis, Missouri, this could be this could be historic potentially, because you might see a couple of feet of snow out of that one, and then eventually going into St. Louis, Indiana, then eventually into the Northeast, where it could bring a lot of impacts similar to the snowstorm that you're witnessing in about 36 hours. Only this one is going to be impacting a larger population, all the way from the Midwest into the upper Midwest, then eventually into the Northeast. And then eventually maybe another one after that, but we can only do 3 systems at a time. So now let's look at the European model, okay? This is the Euro. We looked at the global GFS model, the American model. This is showing, again, that big system that we talked about. Again, big-time severe weather. Again, strong tornadoes, multiple supercells, potentially, especially right down here along the Gulf Coast. This is where I'm really concerned. Even up here, perhaps, is where we could see some big-time tornadoes, damaging winds. For sure, the thermodynamic profile does not yield any big-time hail with this one, since there's a lot of moisture influx, but still, we might see some pea-size hail, at least with some of the strongest updrafts, maybe even some quarter-size hail. And then that moves into the Northeast. Look at those green colors. I mean, off the charts with intensity here. This is a flood event on ridiculous scales, especially here for the Southeast. Okay, that system moves out, but take note too where the snow is going to be. On the northern side, a little less aggressive on the Euro model, and not as optimistic still over Detroit, where you might only pick up an inch or so on the Euro model. And I'll show you that here in a little bit. That moves out, followed by an even bigger system. Look at this system. This is the Euro, folks. And if we go back to a previous run, a little further north on this run, on yesterday's 0Z run, and then it's been trending south, just like the GFS. So right now, these 2 global models, and to make matters even more concerning, even the Canadian model is on board with this. So we got 3 global computer models, the Canadian, the GFS, and the Euro, all indicating on your screen we might have a 3rd, much stronger system that could be developing in the Midwest right around next weekend on the 12th and the 13th, which at the same time, California could get some big-time flooding and some heavy rainfall. I'm telling you, folks, this weather pattern, it's quiet now, but it's really gonna get active, and it could be very impactful. Flights could be canceled multiple times throughout the week. We could see some flooding that we've not seen in quite some time for the Southeast especially, and maybe for the Intermountain West, like California, depending on the atmospheric river of moisture that I'm about to show you here. But also the freezing rain with some of these systems could be very significant. All right. And I rarely hype, or hyperbole, I should say, in my videos, but we gotta start watching. We gotta start watching this pattern, because now we have 3 models favoring this 3rd system here, with, again, that system impacting California. And look at this. This could be really, really significant right here. The Northeast, the California region, look at the Intermountain West, like the Pacific Northwest, big time snow, Arctic outbreak expected there. And then look at, towards the end of the run, still some intense rainfall for California and strong winds. I'm not liking this pattern that's coming. It's not looking very good at all. Now, I'm hoping there's time here where I can show you all the temperature forecast. The Arctic air, I'll tell you right now, is nothing like the last run of the Euro, much further north than what that run was showing. We'll see if it trends back in tonight's 0Z run. So now, how much rainfall could you all see with the two storms combined? Of course, the QPF amounts from the Weather Prediction Center illustrating that some areas down here in Georgia, the Carolinas, and Florida might see anywhere between 4 to almost 7 inches of rainfall in a 2 to 3 day period. That's going to lead to a lot of flood potential. Roadway flooding, small creeks, rivers could overflow their banks, street flooding. Something that you do not want to be in, okay? So a lot of rain, very active weather across the southeast because of this amplified pattern that we're in. We'll see about the western portion of the U.S. Still questions about that, but still might pick up a couple of inches of QPF, a quantitative precipitation that is in the forecast, but it would be in the form of snow. Pattern change thereafter potentially ringing on the doorstep for the second half of January. So how much snowfall in a 3-day period you could see with storm number 2? Well, here it is right here. Might see about an inch or so over Detroit. If you're in Chicago, you might see a little more. Of course, if you're in Kansas, northern Missouri, you could see almost a foot of the 10-1 ratio. I don't have the Kachira here in that 3-day. It doesn't let me display that. It's still, oops, and I forgot to transition. There we go. You guys can see that a little bit better. I'm so sorry about that. So, of course, a lot of snowfall. Now, going into storm number 3, right in here, yes, we got to watch this one. A little more uncertainty because we're further out in time. Take note of that. But we could see another highly impactful snowstorm for much of the Midwest, extending into the Northeast. That could bring blizzard conditions, maybe another ice storm for some locations, and another severe weather event, depending on how the dynamics do set up. The global, or the GFS, the American model, also very similar. The second system, again, anywhere between 6 to 12 inches for some locations. That moves out, followed by a more stronger system, especially over Illinois, Kansas, and Missouri, might get anywhere between 12 to 18 inches. But again, this is a little further out, within 200 hours, so we don't know exactly how this is going to pan out. But it's encouraging to see, or it's not really encouraging to see, that 3 models now are agreeing on the same system. So that one could yield much higher confidence for a more significant impactful system for many residents. And then, of course, if you're in the Northeast, you can see more snow with that. So now some of you were probably wondering about the ice. I know there's so much to talk about in today's video. This is probably going to be one of the longest videos I have ever made on the channel because there's just so much of digestion of data to go through. Freezing rain with the first system on the GFS model, yeah, might squeeze out a ½ inch. Let's take a look at the European model. Similar amounts between 1/4 to a ½ inch. How about the high-res models? Let's look at the NAM 3 kilometer. Very similar outcome here, between about 1/4 to a ½ inch. Now, I don't know if you're going to see an inch of ice, but if you do, that would be even more worse than having an inch of ice. Then the HRRR model, also, let's go to the 18Z run here. A little more less aggressive, but still showing some ice there over the Appalachians. Now, of course, when we look at the GFS model for next week's ice storm, potentially, let's go forward, you might see maybe 1/10 to 1/4 of an inch, since there's a lot of uncertainty here, along to go with the European model, also indicating quite a bit of ice. Look at that for a northern portion there of, say, Arkansas, might see 3/4 of an inch. We'll see if that stays in future model runs, because, yeah, we all know we're entering a very active pattern. So now, really quickly onto the severe weather aspect of things. I'm going to make this very quick here because we still got to go through temperatures, folks, because the cold air is going to also be a big problem with this whole crisis of storms that are anticipated. So surface winds, you're looking at the clean surface, 80-meter winds coming in out of the southeast. This is with storm number 2. That's the big one that everyone's concerned about with the flooding, heavy rainfall. There's also going to be severe weather. So surface winds out of the southeast. When we take a look at our low-level winds, yeah, they are much stronger, folks. We are talking some hurricane force winds at 5,000 feet above the surface. So that gives us a speed shear with height and directional shear. So a directional change with height So we're seeing our winds veering. So we got some streamwise vorticity that are in place, advecting over the region of the southeast here. And then, of course, when we take a look at our mid-level, or our 18,000 foot level winds, they are actually out of the southwesterly direction in this warm sector. So if we do get any strong thunderstorms that utilize the instability, we have enough buoyancy in the air that could advect northward amid the low-level jet, and a lot of moisture influx lifting northward along this warm front in the free warm sector. If we get any thunderstorms, they could become pretty intense. We could have some strong rotating updrafts, and those would be the ones to watch for the potential for strong tornadoes that could be long-tracked and lived, depending on the synoptical environment. And the Storm Prediction Center has really been illustrating just how big this could actually end up being. In fact, if we do take a look at that, excuse me here with the temperature forecast, let me actually take that off really quickly, and let's go to our severe weather outlook here from the Storm Prediction Center. And we can see here we do have a 15% probability of severe weather, both for day 4 and day 5. But I really think that day 4, we could see some significant upgrades with the outlook. Potentially an enhanced risk for sure will probably be introduced if model trends continue. And if they continue as intense as they are here, we could even see a moderate risk of severe weather out of this for the extreme Gulf Coast. So like down in here is where I think we will have the best chances for some strong tornadoes, water spouts, and some damaging winds with these isolated, discrete storms, should they become discrete and remain discrete long enough. I also almost forgot to share with you all on the chances of flooding and heavy rainfall. There's also a slight risk for heavy rainfall for Mobile, for New Orleans, as well as Baton Rouge, Tallahassee, Dothan, Montgomery, as well as Jackson in Mississippi. There's a marginal risk for Memphis, Little Rock, Shreveport, Tyler, Clarksville, Nashville. So again, please prepare for rises on small creeks and streams. And this is, let's go to day 5, where there's also a slight risk. And yes, I'm just seeing this for the first time. There is now a moderate risk for heavy rainfall for central and northern New Jersey. So it might not just be some snow very early on, if there is any at all. I don't think there will be. It's going to be a big flood threat. Sparta Township, Franklin Township, Trenton, over here, a moderate risk for heavy rainfall. This, folks, has the potential of causing a lot of damage, a lot of moisture, a lot of dynamics to work with. This is going to be making headlines, and it already is for the early part of next week, followed by, again, that third system. That's also another one that we really ought to watch closely. Now, I'm going to trim this video down by just looking at the Climate Prediction Center. We're not going to be looking at the temperature anomalies in the models. It's just going to take too long, too much detail to break down. We're just going to simplify it here on the Climate Prediction Center. All you need to know now, there is a 90 to 100% chance that the northern tier, even the Pacific Northwest, will have below average temperatures. This is a mighty Arctic outbreak, including for California, as well as the Four Corners. There is some model runs that do indicate that there might be snow in Phoenix and even in Tucson, Arizona. That's very far south for this geographical location in the United States. That would make history by all means, possibly dating back to the early 1900s, the last time it might have snowed in Phoenix, Arizona. Maybe you guys can correct me in the comment section of that. I don't live in Phoenix. I don't live in Arizona. I don't know the climatology very much there. All I know is it doesn't happen very often there. It happens more in Las Vegas. But the thing I wanted to tell you all is this Arctic air mass is also going to create a lot of mayhem. Above average temperature chances. Oops, let me use my yellow pen. Above average temperature chances for the eastern seaboard, for the northeast, for the southeast. Winter is not arriving yet in the next 10 days, unfortunately. But this is not just your above average temperatures. It's going to create a lot of rainfall, a lot of moisture going to be squeezed out. And that's why the Climate Prediction Center here has issued still and maintains that 60% chance for above average precipitation for that location. Not only that, the 8 to 14 day, keeping that Arctic air mass in place across much of the Midwest and the Pacific Northwest, stretching into the deep south with still a summer-like, or not summer-like, but spring-like temperatures for Florida as well as the Northeast. Still no hints of winter yet in the next 8 to 14 day outlook, with still above average rainfall, especially for the west. We really got to watch, all eyes on deck for California, especially as this pattern change, that trough retrograding in retrospect with that ridge, could really favor southwesterly orographic flow here for California. Could squeeze out a lot of moisture if we get the PWATs, if we get enough baroclinic forcing. We can see inches upon inches of rainfall that could be focused over the higher terrain of the Sierras, or mainly in the lower elevations, but maybe in the higher ones because this is going to be a warmer system, maybe for the coastal ranges. So yeah, all eyes here too, while all eyes are on the southeast for the potential for some flooding in the next 14 or so days. With that being said, if you did enjoy today's detailed weather forecast and discussion on 3 big storm systems that are coming, one of them could bring some of the heaviest snowfall for the Midwest. Again, we're watching that, but big time severe weather, flooding, we talked about. But if you guys want to get more detailed updates here on a daily basis, I will be uploading every day, at least as far as I know. I'll make sure that happens because the pattern is getting very active. But you can only stay tuned if you do subscribe to the YouTube channel. You got to hit that subscribe button right now, folks, because I will be keeping you all updated. Might have to do some live streams too on this because this is ironic. This is very, very concerning by all means. Along to go with liking the video and also sharing this video with their family and friends on social media. I want to thank you all for sharing this yesterday. We reached over 500 shares on yesterday's video, so I want to thank you all for that very much. I cannot ask for anything better than what you guys have been giving me. And also thank you for the super chats as well in my previous videos. I love you guys, and I'll be back with you more tomorrow with another detailed weather forecast on this very active pattern. But also check out my Twitter page for the latest information. Even so, I don't upload overnight because I'll be having updates on that along to go with my Discord server. Links in the description below this video. Be back with you more tomorrow in the home weather office.